Hello, everybody. Something a bit different this week. I normally am here by myself, but I'm not this time round. I am joined by, I'm going to go round the horn, Fiona.
Hello, my name's Fiona. I use she, her pronouns.
Yeah. Jess.
Hi, I am Jess. I use she, her, and they, and not mad at he.
And Maddy.
Hello, my name is Maddy. I use they, them pronouns.
Marvellous. We are going to be playing a game this week. We're going to be playing Trophy Dark, which is by Jesse Ross, and we are going to be playing an incursion, which is what the kind of adventure modules are called in this game, called the Flocculent Cathedral. And if anyone needs to know, flocculent means covered in moss, or the quality pertaining to moss, which is a theme that runs through this particular adventure. We have not played this game before between us. We have a total of 0 plays experience between us, so this could be walking somewhat of a high wire, but we're all excited to get into it and lose our minds. As a little brief overview, Trophy Dark is a game about treasure hunters who are doomed. That is important. They are doomed to fail, and they are adventuring into a forest that does not want them there. And that's generally the framing for any of the incursions of Trophy Dark, but there is some variation. Like I said, we're playing the Flocculent Cathedral, and we have 3 treasure hunters with us. I'll be running the game. And I'm going to go round now and ask everyone to introduce their treasure hunters to us and tell us a little bit about them. So first, Fiona, tell us about Desarim.
Desarim, yes, indeed. So Desarim uses she, her pronouns. Her current occupation is spider, which is very exciting. And that includes skills such as surprise, traps, vermin. And then the background is disgraced courtesan, as what she was before she became an adventurer, or a treasure hunter even. And that skill that's related to that is flattery, which is quite exciting. And then finally, I've got a drive as well, which is locate the jewel that haunts Irol's dreams, and we'll if we come to it, we'll come to it, I guess. So excited for that.
Yeah. So each of the hunters in this game, the treasure hunters in this game, will have something that they're desperate enough to enter this forest to look for. They're all kind of open to interpretation, and that is Desarim's. Have you got any rituals?
I do. So rituals kind of like spells and stuff. So my ritual is just doom, which I think is great. Which is it's the evocative sentence is makes a creature feel a pending sense of doom. So I just like that fact that there's just a constant ongoing thing until I decide to switch it really on at some points.
Yeah. So rituals in this game are kind of like low magic, kind of hedge magic, kind of things that people do. This is a deadly game. One of the things out of the gate is if the hunters in this game attempt to fight anything that is not of this world, they will instantly die. So there is only a few ways that you can get through these encounters, and rituals is an important one, a very powerful one. Jess, tell us about Theoden.
Yes, so Theoden uses she, her pronouns. She has an occupation of vessel and a background of escaped cultist. So I'm not entirely sure how escaped she has been from this cult. Some things just don't change. Her skills by nature are attraction, rituals, and surrender. And by her background, her skills are deception. So she has a lot to play with there. But the main drive that she is working with is to inscribe your mother's name in the Azure archives. I do not know what that means.
And
we're going to find out. I like the idea that the Azure archives are something underwater and therefore drowning might be a thing. So very excited to see what that is. And then the rituals that Theoden has are inhabit, which is to possess a creature, and Leviathan, to draw forth a creature of the deep. So a lot of manipulation, deception, and just general culty behavior. It's exciting.
It's worth knowing, as you can tell from both Theoden's and Desarim's drives, that Trophy has a lot of evocative descriptions of backgrounds. It'll name places and people, but it won't explain what any of them are. So it's up to the characters and the players to define what those things mean. So what the Azure archives are, in the rulebook, there's absolutely no explanation at all of what that is or what that means. It is completely up to Jess as a player to define what it means to Theoden. So also worth mentioning is that everyone has an occupation in the background. The occupation is what they are doing right now, as in what their role in the party is essentially. and their background is what they used to do. So their backgrounds are always something that they have been forced out of or have had to leave behind, which is good for kind of character-based stuff, because we learn about these characters as we go. Maddy, tell us a bit about Nevin.
Yes, so Nevin uses he, they pronouns. He is a leech, is his occupation, which gives him the skills blood, deduction, and surgery. Their background is emboldened rat catcher, which gives them the skill layers. And his drive is bribe the justiciars so they erase your crimes. So I do have an idea of what the crimes were, but I'll leave that to be discovered in game.
Yeah.
And he has 2 rituals. One is beast, take a form halfway between human and an animal. I like to imagine that rats heavily feature in the use of this ritual. And parse, divine the meaning of any word, writing, sound, sign, or symbol. So I think that would link in with the deduction skill.
Yeah, that's good. You may be the party's healer, but I don't want any medical care from you, if that's okay.
Yep.
It's just rats.
It's just rats.
Instead of leeches, it's rats.
I like this idea that you've got like a little doctor's bag and it's just full of rats. Just like, oh, rats again, is it?
Rat on it.
So we're going to start playing the Flocculent Cathedral, and the way that an incursion in Trophy Dark is structured is in something called rings, and there are 5 rings in every incursion, and they get progressively more intense and focus on a different aspect of the story and put the characters under different pressures, shall we say. We'll say right at the beginning of this that I do not expect all of these lovely people to make it to Ring 5. And if one of them or more of them does not, they still get to keep playing as kind of ghostly narrators, even though their character will have no effect on the story and won't roll dice. They're still very much part of it. And the game is a collaborative game. It is very, very, very open. The incursion, what the GM has as by way of guidance, may as well just be a post-it note with good luck written on it, because it's very skeletal, but that there's enough prompts there to kind of inspire a group story to be told, and there's enough there to pick up on each ring every time you move on to take things with you and build upon it. So you've got this kind of huge ending, this big kind of dramatic ending. Hope if you get there, you might all just die in the second ring or whatever. Good luck, everyone. Right, are we ready to begin?
Hell yeah.
Okay, so we will enter ring 1. So you find yourselves as treasure hunters standing at the edge of a forest known as the gloaming mire, which is a mangrove dense fen that is rumoured to hold at its very heart the Flocculent Cathedral. It is overwhelmingly muggy, damp. The atmosphere is oppressive. The air is thick. You see ominous signs as you work your way through the fringes of the forest. You see 24 human skulls laying out with the tops sawn off, and they have been used as planters with Venus flytraps and pitcher plants and other carnivorous flora growing out of them. Fat, iridescent flies buzz around. You pass a shallow pool filled to capacity with foot-long koi carp, plump, but covered in not gold and white scales as they normally would, but with thick, furry green moss. Now, no one really wants to live out here, but some people do. There are smatterings of communities, very small, people eking out a living in this wretched, intolerable place. And you see some of those people as you work your way through the very outskirts of this place. And I'm going to ask a paint the scene question to all of you, and we'll go around in turn. What sign do you each see that living on the edge of the mire takes its toll on those who dwell here in a way that city life never could? And I'll start if you'd like, just to give you an idea of kind of what I'm after. So I think you see a couple of people on your way through who are picking their way through bogs and marshes, and they are ostensibly out hunting for food. But the food they're going to find in these places is probably not what you want in a Michelin star restaurant, talking kind of fat worms and eels and other like mud skippers, just, yeah, kind of not great kind of stuff. But they traverse these bogs on stilts. And as you kind of see them going around their work, they're kind of hunched over, they have hoods, and they have these kind of hooks that they use to fish out these creatures from the mud. You notice they're all barefoot and they're stood on these wooden stilts, but they've been at this so long that their feet are kind of curved around the little platforms they stand on, almost like, you know, their bodies are adapting to this environment. Anyone else?
I think that if there are any new arrivals in this place who have had to flee their more comfortable living situations for whatever reason, they find the smell almost intolerable. So they brought with them little bunches of wildflowers and herbs as little nosegays and kind of clutch them close to their faces as they traverse the bogs. And whereas the more seasoned veterans of this place kind of look at them as kind of weak, namby-pamby newcomers who can't handle the true stench of the bog.
I love that. Thank you.
I'd like to think that the cities have maybe singular and well-defined gods and elements of religion that are well instilled into the people, but here the gods are broken and scattered. And so in an effort to appease each one, what hangs from the trees and the houses, the shanties, are little figurines, like almost slapped together with salves, but maybe twine of bones. But these are bones that are not, they are too large to be an animal, and they are too small to be a human. There is something in between there. These horrible sacrifices made to the forest.
This place sounds awful. I'm not going to... It seems like a very grim portent of what's to come. Maybe that's the point. Desiree, give us something that we've seen on the way in.
I think because we've had some really great descriptions of like the smell and stuff. I think the sound of the water as you sort of slosh your way through, it will hit up against various abandoned structures. We sort of had talk about buildings and stuff, and you've talked about the stilts. So things are obviously high up, but I like to think that quite a few places, just the way things are rotted here, they're almost dilapidated to the point where you'll see like half a house or like a bridge, like half a bridge off to nowhere, and just the water constantly lapping at it, like almost like a gentle tide eating away at the wood, rotting it. And just you're looking out and seeing like a path over the water that is like ruined in places, and just the water just constantly breaking away at it little by little.
I really like that. I'll just build on that you maybe go past a house which is almost completely half collapsed and open on one side, but there's still someone living in there and has adapted to the fact that there's just half of their house missing. It's just always a bit drafty.
We're proper window peeping in, but it's the whole house. So
you're wall peeping. Yeah. So yeah, it's a harsh place to exist, and as strangers to this place and outsiders to this place, and Maddy touched on it briefly there about having to help mask the stench. Tell us how your hunters are individually adapting to this new environment. What are you doing to stay in some way comfortable? And do you want to start us off, Nevin?
Yeah, I think going off of the stench, Nevin has equipped a plague doctor mask, which is stuffed with herbs and flowers to kind of try and keep the miasmas out. And Nevin is wearing a sort of long leather trench coat, which is quite tattered at the bottom. And disconcertingly, Nevin is filthy all over apart from his hands, which are spotlessly clean.
Oh, terrifying.
Which, yeah, I'm not sure why that's unsettling, but it is. He's quite a skinny, gaunt figure, probably about 6'2" in height, with kind of lank, light brown hair that sort of flops on either side of his face. And yeah, you can't really see any features under the plague doctor mask, but you would guess that there are some excellent cheekbones under there.
Here's a question: the plague doctor mask, is that something that Nevin uses often, or is that something that he's had to dust off from having not used it a long time?
Yeah, I think this is something that he has researched prior to coming to this location, as other outsiders have said, "Oh, the stench is terrible. This has worked for me in the past when I've had to come visit this place."
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Who's next? Tell us what Theoden looks like and how they are adapting to the environment of the gloaming mire.
Oh, Theoden is not adapting well. Almost the minute that wall of stench washes over the party, Theoden just retches and throws up, just everywhere. But what comes out is just clear liquid, just water, just gushing forth from her mouth. And she coughs and rights herself, and then gradually begins to pull a part of like a tattered black scarf over her face, and attempts to come to the realization that she is where she is. She has long, limp black hair, and her tattered robes that she is wearing clearly were once white, but are splotched with mud and something else brown. Is it old blood? Is it vomit? Is it something altogether more horrendous? You don't know. There is a filthiness to her that just can't be fathomed. Her fingernails have been bitten down to their very nubs, and they are like, there is bleeding skin around her hands. She's sort of like a waif-like figure. She doesn't look like she'd weigh sort of like 150 pounds wet sort of thing. Like she's barely anything. But up in her face, you can see that her eyes are completely black. And there is this great black mud that she has smeared over the top of her face, and a sigil carved in the top of 4 sticks meeting at odd angles. And it is resonant with this idea of a religion long past. It's something that everyone seems to know, but can't quite remember what it stands for. And so as she sort of stands medium height next to Nevin, she's looking around, these black eyes just darting frantically as she continues to try and stop herself from retching. Wow. And that'll be pretty much everything she is.
I have a question of Theoden. So Theoden bears the mark of the cult that she escaped from. Is that something that's permanent and that can't be erased? And have you made any attempt to hide it? And what does someone who bears those marks, how would the other 2 hunters react to seeing someone bearing those marks?
So what's carved into her head, it's a scar. And it is, you can see she's attempted with that sort of black muck to cover it over, but it keeps peeking through. The ridges are still very much there. You can't erase it in any way. This is the mark of the cult of Sklilla. Sklilla is known as a monster of the deep, something that lurks beneath. Many do not take the cult of Sklilla seriously in any way. It is a fable, a story, but those that do are sort of looked down on in society, sort of jested about. They're not a people to be taken seriously. So when something like this turns up, it looks a little bit mad, even in the midst of the gloaming mire. This little thing doesn't seem important in any way.
Lovely. Thank you. I like that very much. Desiree, how are you coping with this sudden change of environs?
Yeah. Well, I feel like compared to these other two, Desiree looks very normal in the sense of like one's got a cool mask that looks pretty badass, and then on the other side you have this like a vessel of some sort. And so seeing Desiree in between, you think like, what's this sort of older woman doing with these two? But a sort of older woman, shaved head, completely shaved, maybe just sort of slightly growing out like a sort of silver, stick thin, like definitely like not sort of not so thin you can see her bones or anything, but like almost like rulers, very much like sort of sharp angles, you'd say to her. Her outfit is, of course, all black, because it makes sense to. But where you think it might have a bit of like billow or shape, it's been very tightly there with what's the word? Belts, like basically all belts to keep anything like the flies. I imagine this place, because it's almost so swampy, there's going to be lots of flies and everything is just so tightly, stylishly, but tightly sort of grasped to her body. And I think as well with the idea of the stilts, she may have like slight stilts just to keep her like being able to sort of sense the water and stuff. But she has like ones on her hands as well, just to help grip anything nearby, so like a tree or like a post or something like that. So she's got sort of almost like sticky gloves in a way to grip stuff. So with Theoden, maybe there's a moment where she goes to sort of pat Theoden's back and then thinks better of it, because she knows that their hand is going to get stuck to her back. And we don't want to get rid of the skin on the back. It's quite nice.
Not yet anyway.
Not yet, no.
Can I ask a question of Desiree, that your background as a courtesan, is it?
Yeah.
Are there any remnants of that in your dress?
I would say that if you looked closer, I mean, obviously you can't have too many belts, but there's definitely some that sort of more further in, maybe past the coat, which maybe you couldn't see to like the naked eye. There are definitely belts made of different kinds. So there's like maybe one of silk, one of a rope that is particularly tight around certain parts of the body. So that idea of sort of like getting pleasure out of that sort of thing. It's a mixture of like an arsenal type thing. So if at any moment I might use it, but at the same time, it's just something to keep close to the heart as well. Some sort of specialist equipment, which may or may not help us in this journey. More of a token of like what's the word? Nostalgia, perhaps.
Lovely, thank you very much. So whilst this section of the gloaming mire is overgrown and wild and seemingly impassable and inaccessible, there is a path that you are following. And I think, like Fiona said, there are segments of broken like boardwalk that have been kind of put in, and you follow this, and then that gives way to being a like as solid as it can be dirt trail that's maybe more loam and moss than it is dirt. And then the boardwalk will pick up again, like they broke a little bit and never bothered to kind of finish it. And you reach a segment of the gloaming mire where the trees thicken a little bit and something gives you pause to stop. Up ahead, on a narrow stretch of the boardwalk which goes across this dark emerald green swamp, are some people up ahead. And it doesn't take too much to identify them as bandits. You can tell from the sound as you approach that there is a largish group of them, and they are engaged in revelry of some sort. They are drinking, they are singing, they are roughhousing, they are carousing with each other. They are having a good old time, but all of you have been around the block enough to know that this is a group laying in wait for people. Who would be leading the way out of the three of you?
Not Theoden.
Yeah. It's Theoden's bad day happening right now. I mean, I am happy to, unless Nevin has a particular cause to lead us.
I think that Nevin has a certain unearned confidence that might lend itself well to stepping forward without necessarily the skill and experience to back it up.
Excellent. I'll let him do that then.
Okay, so Nevin is taking point and kind of motions for the others to stop. And Nevin, you can see up ahead that there is a group, and it's obvious that there's really only one way round without going into the swamp or going completely off the path completely and finding a way around that could be kilometers in either direction. What's your first thought here?
I think one thought is to kind of charm these carousing bandits and try and convince them that we are of a similar ilk and that we should be allowed past. Another is to just slaughter them. That's kind of it's the carrot and the stick that's kind of going on in Evan's head. He'll express that to his companions. How do we want to play this?
So I think we'll just have we'll frame up this little scene. Maddy, if you want to just describe you stopping and turning and telling the others like what you can see. What I would say is that from where you are now, there are bits that are slightly out of view. So you might not have the full story of who is there, but you can definitely see, I'd say 4 or 5 heavy set bandits who look like they could cause trouble.
Cool.
Well, if you would permit me, I may be able to do something about them.
Do we need to cause a fuss, though? Here's my thinking. We're in the middle of an interesting place. The water is quite deep here. It's more if they've got reinforcement or friends around the corner.
Should you allow me to call forth on Sklilla, my 7-headed and relatively powerful Leviathan, I am sure that we can take out all 5 of these and have 2 heads to spare for anyone who would dare come at us. However, Ratcatcher, do you have anything alternative to suggest?
I would be interested in quizzing these bandits, discovering if they have any information about the further mangrove swamp. And if they refuse to cooperate, I could certainly enjoy some devouring by an eldritch water entity. And I might set some of my rats on them for good measure.
I see. Questions first, devouring and rats later. Always a good philosophy.
I follow your lead, Nevin.
Onwards, I guess.
Okay, so Nevin, you're going to approach the bandits and try and reason with them. Is that what we're going for?
Yes, with the understanding that this could go south very quickly, and I will determine a signal with Theoden to like set the Leviathan on them at a moment's notice.
Theoden will follow quite closely behind Nevin in that case, almost like using them as a shield in front of them and trying to remain out of sight.
Using your fellow treasure hunters as a human shield, you are getting into the Trophy Dark mindset very, very, very easily. Okay, so this is going to be our first roll, and this is going to be a risk roll. So when you attempt to do something risky, which this is, just wandering up to a group of bandits and saying, well, hello there, fellow bandits.
Borrow.
Yeah. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask you, first of all, what it is that you are trying to do specifically.
I am trying to look at their clothing, what they're doing, and deduce something that I can begin some small talk about, so that they would see me as an ally, to show that I have some kind of in-group knowledge. So I would like to pitch that I use my deduction skill for this.
Okay, so I'll kind of give you some of that for free. Is in that like you can see that they are bandits and you know that they know what they're doing and that they are bad sorts, should we say. They're wrong uns. And I think that this introduction is itself slightly a cover for trying to work out more about them, kind of keeping them talking for a little bit so you work out exactly what they're doing. So what could go wrong, everybody, if this fails?
Well, they could immediately attack.
I mean, that's the obvious one. So the way this goes with a risk roll is I'll ask the person making the roll what to do. All of the other players, including myself, will posit something that could go wrong, and then we'll move on to devil's bargains. So the obvious one there, as Maddy said, is that they could just immediately say, you can't pass without paying a toll. That's my first thing. Any other options for what could go wrong?
This could be a trap. And there might be something already in the water waiting to take advantage, or that the bandits are working with.
Okay. Yep. Fiona, have you got anything that could go wrong here?
Yeah, I think just even just a misstep, if we're trying to get away or something, I would just fall into the water and aren't able to get back to the surface in some way. Like, it's sort of building on what Theoden's thing is, but just the idea that it's more the water just pulling us down, sinking us down, and not being able to move, I think.
Okay, so I get total final say in what the thing that could go wrong is. And I'm going to say just quite simply that you would be wandering into a trap. Now, we are going to gather our dice. So you're going to take one light die. So one of your, they're the good dice in this game. They don't really have any negative effects. You're going to take a light die if the task is something that you can draw upon one of your skills. You said you got deduction there as a skill?
Yeah.
I'll give you that. So your pool currently is one light die. You may also take a light die if you accept what's called in this game a devil's bargain. A devil's bargain is something in this game that the easiest way to phrase it is we say the words, no matter what happens, and then we give you a narrative development. And that is something that will happen whether you succeed or fail the roll, but it's a way to give yourself an extra dice. So I am going to start with devil's bargains. Everyone else can have a little think. You're going to have to get used to coming up with these because we're going to do them every time we roll the dice. My devil's bargain in this instance is no matter what happens, this is going to attract something undesirable from the water, shall we say. Anyone else with the devil's bargain? And bear in mind, Maddy, you don't have to accept any of these. You can reject them. And also people can build on other people's devil's bargains, and Maddy can decide whether they want to alter them slightly and accept them. It's a negotiation, this game, whenever you roll dice.
I would suggest no matter what happens, in whatever scuffle or exit, that you lose your doctor's mask. So not being able to prevent the smell of the swamp coming in.
I like that a lot.
I'm going to posit that no matter what happens, you recognize one of the bandits and there's somebody who means something to you.
That's pretty good.
I like that. So, Maddy, you don't have to accept any of these if you don't want to. But would you like to accept a devil's bargain for an extra white dice?
I would. I'd like for someone in the bandit troop
100%.
to mean something to me. I think.
100%.
Yeah. I can't give up that juicy tidbit.
This is currently now at 2 white dice. Now, there is another way that you can add more dice, which is if you're prepared to risk your body or mind, and you can decide to do that now, you add a dark dice to your pool. Now, dark dice, the issue with that is if your dark dice is your highest and it is higher than your current ruin score, then you will see your ruin go up. You can, whenever you roll dice in this, add another dark dice to the pool and re-roll as many times as you like until a dark dice is the highest, and then you have to stop. And the results you're looking for are 6 is a complete success, 4 and 5 is a partial success, 1 to 3 is a total failure. Currently you have 2 dice. Would you like to take some more?
Ooh, I think for an educational demonstrative purpose, I'd like to take a dark die on this first roll, see how it goes.
Okay, so you are how are you putting your body on the line for this? I think is it just because do you realize that you're hopelessly outmatched?
Yeah, I think I am not. I have my hands out. I'm not reaching for any weapons of any kind. I'm not wearing any armor. I am just coming up in my cool coat, just waiting to see what happens.
Hey guys, what do you think?
Pretty sick, huh?
And the ultimate aim of what you're trying to do here, if you succeed, they will allow you to pass. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just quickly, what would you be going for to allow them to pass? Are you kind of trying to make yourselves out to be worse bandits, or that? Oh, I've got an idea. Is it because you might point behind you and to Theoden and be like, she's a nightmare, basically?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But...
Is that the general approach?
Yeah, I think we're similarly outside of the law. If we kind of reach an understanding, we won't mess with each other. We won't incur any losses on either side. If you cross us, then I'll set the Leviathan on you.
Okay, cool. So let's have a roll then, please.
All right.
Our first roll.
They're all 4s.
Oh.
Mm.
They're all 4s. So, in an event of a tie, your dark dice is the highest, so you can't re-roll those. And your current ruin is what, Maddy?
It is 3.
I'm afraid your ruin is going to go up. So
you fine, Evan. We never knew you. That's
yeah, your ruin is at 4. So ruin is kind of like the countdown to the loss of the hunter to the forest. When you reach 6 ruin, we consider them lost and they are part of the forest now. Like I said, they get to keep playing and they get to keep narrating and being part of the story, but they don't get to roll any dice. So 4 is a success, as it happens. So, but it's with a complication. The complication is that there are a lot more of them than you first realized as you work your way along the boardwalk. A few more who might have been just asleep in some knotted roots to the side or passed out drunk. And I think there's still some that are passed out drunk in the corner. But they are now clogging the boardwalk. And the devil's bargain you took was that one of them would be someone you recognized. I think that might be one of the ones who's just kind of stumbled onto the boardwalk from just off out of sight. Who is it?
I think it is the brother of the person who I performed risky experimental surgery on.
Oh my god!
Which caused me to get in bad with the justiciars, for whom I am seeking a bribe to get them off my back.
So here's the question: you don't normally wear that mask. We've established that. Do they recognize you?
That is a good question. I think, well, they can't see my face, so that is a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have quite a distinctive silhouette otherwise.
Okay, so I think the complication is going to be, right, this person sort of recognizes you, doesn't say anything to stop you being not let in deeper into the forest, but I think they're going to follow you. And I think they're going to follow the group. They're going to start trailing you. So you approach, and the kind of biggest, heaviest set of the thugs block the way. They stand shoulder to shoulder. They're that thick they fill up the space that could be taken by 4 people. And they're a real ragtag bunch, and they have curved blades, a real mishmash of weapons and improvised devices for harm, clubs, bones, anything. Their regalia, their uniforms, if you can call them that, are scraps of local militia, town guard, mercenary uniforms, bits of armor bolted on. Some people have got bits of like tortoise shell and bark. They are improvised bandits, but you see as you approach that you would be turned inside out by these guys pretty simply, and they wouldn't hesitate to do it either. And they're about to crack their knuckles and start demanding tribute on to make you pay the way to get past. But they see Theoden, and their kind of cockiness is somewhat curtailed. So they face up to Nevin, and they're like, "Hello, boys." They're all Disney villains from like the 70s.
There's a number happening somewhere, yeah.
Hello, boys. What we got here? A couple of flies in a spider web. Maybe a chance to earn a little cash. And they kind of start swarming down the boardwalk, and then they see Theoden, and they are like, "Oh, hang on, second thoughts." How do you react to seeing that happen, Nevin?
I think I put on a charming affect and say, "Good morrow, gentlemen. I believe that you have noticed the most spiritual in our party, who will offer you mercy if you are kind enough to let us pass. But obviously, if you do not comply with our wishes, things could go very badly for you. And I think if you are aware of what symbol she carries, you might have an idea of what may befall you."
And I think one of them says, "Do you take us for some superstitious stilt walker?" And then as he's saying this, everyone else behind him has backed off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like they're kind of like, oh, and then he turns and he's like, "Hey, all right, like, oh, hang on." And he kind of, I think that maybe you walk with enough confidence that you don't kind of break your stride as you coming, and he just kind of stands aside. And I think that as one of them moves out of the way on the boardwalk, they maybe knock a twig or a rock off into the water, and as it makes a splash, everyone kind of jumps because they kind of think that there's going to be a 9-headed monster appear out of nowhere and take them. But as you pass them all, I think that's when you notice the brother of the person who you performed an experimental surgery on, and you try not to react. But you see him clock you. Maybe something about your coat that he remembers, or the way that you carry yourself that he remembers, and you consider yourself marked by him as you go. So you make your way up past this boardwalk, and as you get some distance from the bandits, the thing that's unusual is that their songs continue. And you hear them, even when you've moved what must be kilometers away from the point at which you pass them. Their voices, these ragged, bawdy songs, echo through the trees. And as the light starts to fade on the day, you can still pick out fragments of doggerel and bits of verse that you can't tell if you're just being paranoid, whether it's just this place, whether you feel on edge, whether it's the other hunters you don't trust, but you feel a little bit like some of these songs are about you. And you reach a point and you're kind of looking for somewhere to just take a little rest and kind of have a pause and rehydrate, even though you feel pretty goddamn damp right now. And there's a little clearing. And in the clearing, you are kind of brought to a halt as you enter it by seeing two figures sat opposite each other. And you move closer. And as you reach them, you realize they're not moving. You instinctively went for whatever defensive weapon you had, or whether you wanted to just ball your fist and start ready to raise a hydra. Classic. And you get close and you realize that it's actually two desiccated corpses sitting opposite each other. There is the rotted remains of a picnic between them. And each has the other's hand. Sorry, each has a hand in the other's mouth. But the hands just hold soil, loamy soil, like they're forcing soil into each other's mouths, and they are locked in this deathly pose. Desiree, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I was thinking, just looking at these corpses, sort of almost like in a sort of lovers sort of thing. I sort of say aloud to no one, I really should write to him.
I like that.
And yeah, it just, yeah, you can tell that her sort of she's gone back to a different time, but you're not entirely sure what kind of time this might have been. But yeah, just looking on this sort of lovers scene. But yeah, sort of thoughtful, as well as the horrificness of the scene.
Theoden, how does it make you feel?
Theoden feels divine looking upon such a sacrificial scene, and she will sort of wind back to Desiree, fix her with her eyes. You are good with traps, are you not?
I have dabbled a little, yes. You think this is a scene set for more than just them, for us?
I do not think this was the picnic they envisioned, and I highly doubt that this has been left here untouched, the corpses desiccated and, well, posed as something natural. This is a trap. I can sense it. But can you?
I will, first of all, as with all sort of traps, I look up to make sure there's nothing hanging above us. And then, yeah, I guess I'll sort of just pace around and sort of try and see if there's anything. I mean, it is an odd scene. Let's face facts here. But if there's anything that would indicate like a tripwire or maybe the basket that there's the picnic, sorry, that's there. If there's anything would leap out for us, maybe the blanket that they are on there is just going to turn into something horrible.
I'll give you this for free. So you survey the scene, you kind of see what's what, and there is nothing untoward, which I don't know whether or not that makes you feel better or worse, because this is something that would seem like an obvious trap. But there are two things at play here. One is that there is nothing you can see it's obvious that someone has set this to lure anyone in. And the other thing is that this is probably the driest place that you could stop for a rest. So if you are going to stay here and find somewhere to rest, you're going to have these two for company. What I will say, Fiona, is I think that when you are examining the picnic, you do find a couple of coins. So in one of the lovers' hands, they are clasping a couple of coins, and you'd probably take them, right?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah.
Free
money.
You notice them as someone from your background. They're from somewhere very far away. Like the regent's head that is on them is a far away king. But it's relatively, I say recent in terms of like, it's like in the last 100 years. This is a historical figure that from within the last 100 years and what you understand it. Do you share that with the group?
Oh, of course not. No, I'm going around doing my part and just sort of like give myself a little tip, and I put it into one of the pouches that are on one of the belts, and I go, I think it's safe, and so just one of those unfortunate lovers' incidents. I think, as long as you don't mind. I know 3's a crowd and all, but 5's practically an orgy, so. We can always move them and turn them aside if needed, if we need more space.
Very good. I like that. I like how glib that is. So also nearby, the one other thing you do notice is that there is an ancient well, and it's so overgrown with moss that it just blends in with the background. But as you approach, you see that it is a well, and it functions. There is a winch and a bucket that goes up and down. Whether or not you want to drink the water from it is another case entirely. But as you look into the well, you can see that the inside of it is lined with plump slugs. And they are the colour and size of aubergines. And they are just slowly lining the inside of this. And I think maybe if, when you lean over, maybe a little bit of light shines over. And as soon as any light hits any of them, they just kind of move out of the way to stay in the shadows. You have to strain your eyes to see. And as you are sitting and kind of trying to make yourselves more comfortable, as Desiree is thinking about those coins, you can hear those songs, those shanties that the bandits are singing. And
can I at this point jump in and say, Theoden probably wouldn't have gotten too comfortable, but would have gone straight to the well.
Oh, okay.
That promises water. That is very much her thing.
Oh, I tell you what, as soon as you look into the well, the slugs start to move up the inside towards you.
Oh, man.
Friends?
And they have their little antennas just poking over the top, and the light doesn't seem to bother them in your presence.
She's absolutely fascinated by these things and is almost... There is an element of her that almost mimics them as they crawl up, and that slippery slide. The way she moves, the way her spine no longer sort of is jagged, but is just slippery as she begins to just sort of mimic them, reaching past and up the bucket, and then drops it down into the depths.
I sort of, Theoden, looked out. Oh, too late.
This is a real Pippin in the Mines of Moria moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Except with slugs, so it's like a slow death.
But I am thirsty. So thirsty. And this mire clogs my senses. I just need to drink. And she begins to lower the bucket.
Okay, so as Theoden is replenishing themselves with slug water, the songs of the bandits fill the air. And I've got a question for you all as you try and focus on the task at hand. What bits of verse do you overhear? And what bits do you take note of in the way that they seem to be about you or about your background? And how do you think these verses will help you avoid the fates of the people they're about? So I'll begin just to give you a little bit of an insight. So one recurring theme that comes in this song that he's singing, that's going over and over, one recurring line is about a doomed trio. That perhaps any people who are foolish enough to go into the woods without being in two pairs are doomed to fail. And one will always turn on the other two, or two will turn on the other one. So is there anything in this song that you hear that seems to speak to you and is a warning to what your fate might be?
I think this is where my mind goes to. I think at one point, it's sort of the swirling sort of eddies and flows of like the song itself almost goes to almost like a childlike nursery rhyme type thing. And it sort of uses the lyrics from There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly, but it's that verse of like, there was an old lady who swallowed a spider that wriggled and tickled and all up inside her. And it's just that, so that she swallowed a spider, you think to catch the fly, but it was like to catch the heart or something. And it is just that sort of phrase of like, she swallowed the spider and stuff. And it's just like this sort of twistedness about it that Desiree sort of hears on the wind. And I guess taking from that knowing that she probably did something incredibly terrible, but to keep herself grounded, that she did that. And it's to bring her back to that moment, I guess, so that no matter what happens, she knows that she made that choice before she entered the forest, and that is who she is. And so it can always go back to that moment of when, maybe metaphorically, but maybe physically, swallowed a spider.
I like that very much. Anyone else, please?
I've done a little scrawling, and I think I have something on the winds, and again these eddies of song. Theoden picks up. A broken vessel, shattered at birth, no love shared, a likely curse, will not escape her watery fate, lest she leaves, it is too late.
Oh, I like that very much.
Oh.
And how do you feel hearing that? And do you feel like that can't apply to you? No, you're going to be different.
There is a part of her that stops. She has her hands in the water and is drinking sort of greedily almost. And as she hears the line "broken vessel," she stops. The water just drips down her chin onto her clothes, and she turns to the others and wonders if they've seen wonders if they've heard what she's just heard, or if it's all in her head again, and is looking at them for any signs of recognition.
If anything, I'd just say, please don't drink that.
She drops the bucket without hesitation as Cesarum says it. Of course, and begins to mosey back to the group.
Nevin, what part of this song speaks to you about your past or your future?
I think there is a refrain about a child catching rats, and a warning that in the future this child, when grown, will be caught in a trap much like one of their rats.
Oh, wow. Oh.
I like that very much. And I think that as you're all trying to pass what all this means, or block it out, or trying to work out whether the other people have heard these verses, you definitely all hear a verse that makes you stop and look at the picnicking lovers, because there's a verse which seems to evoke an old folk tale of two fated lovers from different royal houses that were shunned by their families because they wanted to marry. And, it's a tale as old as time. You've seen it all before. But there was one place where their love could be sanctified and it could be made real, which was the Flocculent Cathedral. And they sought out the cathedral in order to have their love made official. And this could be them, or it could just be an old folk song. Who knows? But you keep hearing it over and over again.
Yes, I sort of say under my breath, oh, many happy returns. Just like...
The Flocculent Cathedral. So maybe it is real. Maybe this merry band of adventurers we have formed together is not fated to die after all. Maybe we will find it. Maybe we will be the first. Imagine. No, we cannot be the first. These two must have found it. It is real.
Well, I'd like to be the first to find it and live. I don't...
Oh, that might be asking too much, but I understand.
We live in hope.
I really like that idea that these two didn't die on the way to the Flocculent Cathedral.
Yeah.
They actually made it, and this is their wedding breakfast. And
I'm going, in that case, can Theoden take a closer look as she's sort of gone, yes, these two, they prove the Flocculent Cathedral is real. I want to look at their hands inside each other's mouths. She'll pull one of the hands gently out, but gentle as it is. Maybe I like the idea that maybe that hand is grasped into the other's jaw and it snaps off as it comes out. She's checking for the rings that will prove that they have been there.
I'm going to say that there are rings, but they are not of any metal, you know.
Oh.
They are bone.
Oh.
Till death do them part.
Or someone else. Nevin,
Yes.
you know vermin. Tell me, what kind of bone is this? Does it belong to one of yours or something else?
May I examine the bone ring and see if I can figure out from whence it came?
Yeah, and I think I'll give that for free. Like that is, it's kind of a cross section of a leg bone of something like the size of a turkey or something. So like the hollow, like the marrow has been sucked out, and then you know the finger, you know, this has just been used to like cut into a thin band and then used as a ring. And this is odd because this is, you know, the folk tale tells of a royal couple, and whether or not a royal couple would use turkey bone rings, who knows? Either way, it's pretty strange.
Is there any sign of how they died? Is it them choking on the soil that they've put in each other's mouths, or is it something else more intangible that's caused their deaths?
So they're pretty desiccated. There's no obvious sign of trauma, let's say. Actually, if you want to know, I'm gonna want to roll from you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it'll be a risk roll. You have a skill in deduction, I think, isn't it? So you know,
Yeah.
but I mean,
I've got deduction, I've got surgery, I've got blood.
So my question is that if you do want to go down this route, what do you want to learn and what do you want to happen?
I would like to learn if they were poisoned, if there's any sort of dangerous flora or fauna that we should look out for. And yeah, I'd like to learn something about the environment and whether they have something on them that has a hint about the Flocculent Cathedral. I'm just kind of doing a full once over of these corpses, and if I have to kind of scalpel into them a bit, that's fine.
Okay, everyone, what do we think could go wrong if Maddy fails this roll?
Oh, I guess if it failed the roll, I think they're not dead. I think they're very much still alive. Yeah, I know. We're both. But I think they're maybe fused together as like one creature. As a result, they will react and attack us.
Jess, did you have anything to add or anything different to put in there?
I like the idea maybe that if this is from the Flocculent Cathedral, that it will fight back as Moss does, and will attempt to stop Nevin from incisioning in any way. Moss will just continue to grow out of the corpses and crawl, essentially take over anything nearby.
I'm going to say that if this fails, then you will learn something about the power of the Flocculent Cathedral. That would be what I'm going to say. So let's assemble your dice pool. So you'll have one light dice for what skill are you going to take? Surgery, deduction?
I think surgery to mix it up a bit.
Surgery. So this is more kind of analytical. This is more hands-on than kind of just trying to figure it out on site or whatever. So one light dice for that. Devil's bargains, everyone. I'm going to say that no matter what, the person who has followed you, the bandit that followed you, is going to see this and realize who you are. Anyone else?
I'm going to say that for the briefest of moments, as you are cutting into the creature, you swap places with it in your mind's eye, and you are the one being cut into, and it makes you realize what it feels like, not just as surgeon, but as patient. for once.
That's dark, but I like it.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I was say, I like that. I can't improve on that at all.
Okay.
Like that. Yeah, I support Jess as well.
Maddie, would you care to take either of our devil's bargains?
Ooh. I'd like to take both of them.
So you can only take one.
I can only take one.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
that's
take one.
entirely fair.
Yeah.
Pretend
Okay.
you take both and go, oh.
But I mean, there's always ways we can work some of those things into the complications or the failure, whatever. There's flavour there we can use. There's no ideas discarded in Trophy Dark. Just keep them in the back pocket.
Nice.
For,
Cool.
for Spice, Glorious Benevolent GM, can I offer a help roll?
You can only offer a help roll if there's a dark dice involved. So
Okay.
Maddie would have to roll a dark dice in this. So
Okay.
they would have to either be doing a ritual or putting their mind or body on the line.
Gotcha. All right.
And the thing about help rolls is, if they go wrong, then you also pay the cost.
Hell yeah.
So, Maddie, are you prepared in not even ring 2 yet to put your body or mind on the line?
You do not have to, but the offer is there
Yeah.
if you would like it.
Cool. I think considering my my 4 ruin already, I will refrain in this case.
So this is going to be 2 light dice.
dice.
Roll them up and let's see what you've got.
Yeah, and I think the devil's bargain that I'm going to pick is the swapping places
Yeah.
and feeling the surgery.
Yep.
2 5s.
2 5s. So you succeed. It's not a total success, but you get to do it. You get to first of all tell us what this looks like and tell us what that place exchange feels like.
I think that Nevin takes out a gleaming scalpel. Similarly to his hands, it is spotlessly clean compared to his filthy coat and jerkin and trousers. And he carefully kind of makes incisions on either side of one of the figure's mouth so that he can open up the jaw and look inside into the throat. And I think as that happens, it's the first incision goes without a hitch. Then the second one, he just suddenly feels a splitting pain in the side of his face. And as he pulls his hand away from the side of his mouth, there is blood. And there is now a ragged sort of gash in the side of his mouth, kind of making him artificially smile a little wider than he used to.
And I'm assuming that no one else can see this because you've still got your mask on, but maybe blood is starting to seep down the Nevin's neck so the others can see what's going on. I think as you do this and as your scalpel goes in and you have this kind of Freaky Friday moment of you switching with places with your patient, who is beyond help, by the way. Sorry, it's a desiccated corpse.
They are dead.
Yeah, it's official, guys. These guys are both dead. I don't know if anyone's picked up on that.
Damn.
I could have saved them.
You have what could only be described as a vision, I think. You see a flash and of something, and it's really profound, especially as a man of science, quote unquote science. Nevin feels the presence of the divine and feels something that whatever Nevin's relationship with religion is, you feel like you are being watched over by the gods. Or specifically, I would say, the saints. And so passes ring 1. So ring 2. You have been moving again for about kind of an hour or so, and you are relieved to find the mangrove and the twisted knots of trees and dank underfoot conditions start to thin out, and you find yourselves on more solid ground, I would say. Thick brambles and stunted trees and marshy soil is now what you have to contend with. But the immediate thing that hits you as you kind of move out of the mangrove, and when I say hits you, I mean literally hits you, is the thickest cloud of buzzing, biting, clawing, scratching, boring insects. And it is like someone has just chucked a bucket of hot gravel at you, in that they are all over you. They are finding any available scrap of flesh between the gaps in your clothing and trying to find somewhere to make home. It is so loud, the buzzing and the chittering, that you have to shout to hear each other. How do you feel confronted by this? And more importantly, how are you keeping the insects at bay?
Theoden hasn't experienced anything like this before. Where she's from, there are no clouds. There are barely any insects in the stone cities that her sect is from. So this is alien completely to her. But as these painful little bastards, like, just immerse all of them, Theoden does what she does when pain is presented to her and surrenders completely, body and soul. This must be a lesson. There must be something wrong, and she must be learning. So Theoden initially sort of flinches and then just releases and lets it happen.
Interesting. I think I like where that's going, and I think you've given me a bit of an idea. So I'm going to ask for a risk roll, please.
Hell yeah.
Because this is quite a risky thing when you've got all these bugs going at you, hungry for blood, hungry for a new home, and you're just opening yourself up to it. So what is it you're trying to achieve here?
So my thinking is that something like wasps or bees, maybe bees are attracted to things that see, if you are seen as a threat or if you are seen as something worth attacking, then they will. But if she surrenders, if she just lays limp, maybe they will leave her alone. That's how she's learned to deal with the punishments of her sect before.
Wow.
So she's going to use her skill of surrender to try and almost pass seamlessly through them.
Yeah, so that's going to be your first light dice, because there's a skill that's relevant. What could go wrong, everyone? It seems kind of obvious. I will start in the. I'll say that if this goes wrong, then I think all of the insects and creatures that are bothering Nevin and Desiree will be like, I think there's a better target, lads.
Free dinner.
Yeah. Easy prey.
Yeah. Maddy, Fiona, got any advances on that or any different ideas?
I feel like if you should fail, the way that it just will be covered in this horrible sort of like be stuck to your skin in this way, but as a result, your vision will be obscured, and so you might, as you're walking, might fall into like not a pit, but like fall into something deeper. You can't see where you're going, and so unknown horrors will definitely set upon you because you are blinded.
I think my suggestion would be that one or more of the insects crawls through your ear into your brain and starts controlling your body in some way.
Oof. I think I might suggest that you save that for a devil's bargain. So I think I'm going to say that
Beautiful.
that if this goes wrong, I think you're going to be the magnet for these flies, and the others are going to get off a little lighter. Devil's bargains, everyone. I'll start. I'm going to say that no matter what, the person who is following you the brother of Maddy's, I'm sorry, Nevin's surgical mishap, should we say, is going to see this as a really good opportunity to attack. That's my devil's bargain. Anyone else?
I think for the no matter what, again similar to the songs, the sort of from the sort of the bandits, you can only hear like there's like a low sort of like white noise rumbling of those insects from now on for you, because you've not been able to get rid of all of them, that they're still with you as a presence somewhere.
I think to iterate on my previous suggestion, one of the insects still crawls inside and makes a home in your brain, and you have this constant nagging sensation that you must do this insect's will. You can fight against it, but it's always there.
Oh, I like this a lot. So I'm going to say brain creature. Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so you're accepting that devil's bargain, so that's a second light dice. Are you putting your body or mind on the line?
I'm going to save my body and mind, hopefully, for the later rings, but let's see what happens now.
So we've got just two white dice. Give them a roll and see what happens.
So one of those is a 6 and the other is a 3.
So that is a success.
What? How?
So, and no matter what, we had this mind control going on, but this can be seen in other ways. Because you rolled a straight success, tell us what that looks like, Theoden.
So Theoden's entire body, when we've all walked into this, just sort of crumpled up as if she had been scrunched up like paper. And then suddenly an instinct kicks in and she straightens up and her body sort of goes limp. And as she does, this mass of insects that was burrowing and burrowing into her skin, you can see she wasn't ready for any of this. So there are holes now in this sort of tattered sort of veil thing that she was wearing. These insects sort of suddenly stop and just drop off her as if they have tasted poison in some way. And as they do, you notice just one manages to escape this by instead of biting, burrowing in through an already channeled canal in her ear and moving into her head. And initially she doesn't flinch, but then you just see her begin to spasm. And it takes a moment, but she submits completely.
I'm going to say that as that happens, all of the other flies, mosquitoes, bugs, everything just swarm around you like a cloud, but they just don't. They're like almost like a protective cloud now, and they are just in your aura and your thrall. And would you like to define what that insect in your brain is doing? Because you rolled a success. This is if it was a failure, I could have given you an awful condition. But is this going to be something that allows you to communicate with bugs, maybe, or is this something that's going to allow you to? Is that why the other bugs aren't going near you, because they think you're like a host or a queen?
A queen bee, yeah.
Oh, I would love that. Yes. Let's say so. Theoden can't figure out what is being said. There are no words. It is unspoken movement, vibrations, dances that she feels in the back of her head. Something that crawls over her brain and into the veins of the meat in there. And as she does, like, her arms just sort of jankily move up and begin this sort of horrific little dance. And as she does, this cloud of bugs swarming Nevin and Desiree just begins to mimic her shape instead of attacking you. And then gently, gradually, she pulls them away and just... They form like a thrum around us. Almost protective, but not quite. There is an innate threat in them hanging around, and boy, are they hanging around.
I love that. Thank you so much. That was really nice. That said, it was pretty disturbing to watch a bug crawl into one of your party's ear and then suddenly become a magnet for bugs. So I'm going to ask for ruin rolls, please, from Desarim and Nevin. So roll a dice. Roll a dice, please. One single d6 and compare to your current ruin.
All right. Compare.
Can I add to this
Sure.
atmospherically? As this happens, Theoden almost lets out a laugh, but it's just the chittering of an insect.
Oh. Oh, I like that a lot. Well, I don't like it, but you know what I mean.
I don't like it in a good way.
Yeah. Desarim, let's have a ruin roll, please.
Upsettingly, I've rolled a 6 on it, so it's higher than my current ruin of 2.
So your ruin goes up to 3, and
Yeah.
you're going to get a condition, which I will come back to shortly. Nevin, please.
I also rolled a 6, which is higher than my current ruin of 4.
Why can't we get that on our normal rolls?
This is interesting now because Nevin is up to 5 ruin. This means you qualify for a special kind of roll because one more ruin and you are going to be lost to the forest. Now, the special kind of roll that you're available to have is called a reduction roll, which is basically it mechanizes you betraying the others to reduce your ruin. We will come back to that when there is an opportunity to do that. But first, I'm going to give you both conditions. Desarim, you watch on with horror as not horror, just like a mild disgust at first, then a deep discomfort of
very unsettled.
Yeah, exactly. And you just feel, even though the bugs have gone, you feel like they're still on you. And so much so that you are kind of brushing yourself down and everything. And you know those gloves you were wearing at the start? You pull those off because you feel like one must have got in your hands. And you can't see anything, but you hold your hand up to the light, your right hand up to the light. And as you fan your fingers, you see thin spider webs form between them. And barely noticeable microscopic green spiders scuttle between your knuckles. And as you pull them away and shake off the webs and then put your hand back together, as soon as you pull them back out again, you see them just constantly threading between your fingers. How does that make you feel?
It's the inevitable of being in this place. I really should write to him. I think it's just because I'm, again, knowing of this stuff and just seeing the unsettling going, just like that sort of sense of doom that I have, I'm like, it's internalized. I think it's just the acceptance that this is going to happen and this is a part of the journey, so to speak. So yeah, unwilling acceptance to what is happening.
I wonder if this is like people have told you, anyone that's been in and left the gloaming mire, maybe treasure hunters who have failed to find the Flocculent Cathedral, have told you that these things happen, but you just think of them as old wives' tales or you know, and when you see it, you've kind of got that, oh yeah, okay, this is happening now and it's to me, of course it is. And I think, it
had to be me.
It's
all very self-censored.
Nevin, the impromptu surgery that you performed on a corpse earlier left you with a wound, didn't it? Just behind your jawline, was it?
Yeah, it was kind of coming from
your
mouth
yeah, that's
to
right.
create a wider smile.
Okay, so again, much like Desarim, you feel that there is something inside your clothing. And I think you are forced to pull off your plague doctor's mask, and the herbs come falling out of the nose part of it, and you're instantly hit by that stink for the first time, which has been dulled all this time that you've been here, but now it's in your nostrils and you can feel it in your throat. It's just so rank. The others have adjusted to it, but for you, this is your first time at the party. And you put your hand to your wound at the side of your mouth, and it's kind of dried a little, But obviously when you move your face, it kind of opens that wound just a tiny bit. And as you can feel something sprouting from there. And as you look, the others can see. As you try and hide, but you can't. There are tendrils that would be coming out of an exotic plant, slowly starting to push their way out of the wound. And again, like, you can push them back, but they still keep coming, just ever so slowly, giving you the impression that your wound is weeping these red tendrils out and down your neck. And I think that you have to push on. You can't linger here, because this is it's a bad shake, this place. I don't particularly enjoy it. And the path out of this area is actually relatively straightforward. And like I said, the footing is much easier than it was when you were wading through swamp and mangrove and bog. You follow what you think is a path. Could be a path, could be a road to somewhere else entirely, but you reach a point where you notice something, and that something is silence. Because you enter like a long, covered path almost, with things lining the path on either side. The covering makes it look like an archway, but actually when you look, it's not an archway at all. It's bugs. The bugs cannot penetrate, and they are forming a thick shell around the path, like they are an archway over it. And as you step onto this path, which is much firmer footing, there's either maybe some flagstones and old grinding wheels that people have put into the ground to make this more trustworthy underfoot. You realise why. Lining the path on each side are statues. Now, those statues are effigies of the sisters. Now, the sisters are the saints of this world, and they are worshipped in the Flocculent Cathedral. I would like each of you, please, to describe the sister who is the patron of your occupation. I would like you to, in a sentence or two, describe the shrine that is left at the base of their statue. You can give this saint a name, or if you can't think of one or you don't know one, then you can just be the Holy Mother of and the occupation. And I would like you to describe how you feel seeing those sisters, and how you feel getting this brief respite from the storm of bugs.
I've got a pretty good idea.
Okay. Yours going to be quite interesting, I think, Taden, because obviously you're a fallen sister. But I wonder if your saint is different to the others, maybe.
Maybe. I like the idea that the cult of Sklilla once had is maybe a branch of some greater religion or some greater power, and as such we have saints that are derived from that, but they look a little different to us now. But back then they worshipped Sklilla in a truer form, in the same way that your seraphim and your oraphim angels look today as women with wings, but were really described as many eyes and with many wings, for example. So this older version of Sklilla, as is known throughout the world, is a sister who stands tall and proud. There is a darkness. It is not moss, it is not wear, and it is not age. It is the stone from which she was carved. She is almost obsidian in nature. But you see, she stands with the posture of somebody who knows grace and love and loyalty, and there is a beauty to her. But from her neck sprouts a second head, and a third on either side. At the back, there is another face coming from her head. Each face seems to have another face. There's this horrendous amorphic nature. to everything that she is above the shoulders. But she stands proud still, this many-faced woman, this sister of Sklilla.
Well, I like that very much. Can I add, if I may, that at the base of the statue of this sister, there is a coiled snake.
Oh, I like that very much.
Desiree or Nevin, tell us about your saint.
Ariadne, the Holy Mother of Spiders, is more of it is a cloaked individual. I'd say sort of like shorter than maybe the other statues. There's always a sort of thing where saints are huge and awe-inspiring. This is more of a smaller individual, but more because they are sort of oddly shaped beneath whatever shroud has been sort of put into the stone. It's definitely more of a plain grey stone. And if you were to look closer, there is it looks almost like a mannequin, so to speak. So the hands aren't as defined or anything like that. Almost like like a mannequin's hands are blocky in a sense, down by their sides, a little bit out. The hood over their head. If you looked in closer, their face is it's like smooth like a mannequin, no mouth, so to speak, but many eyes of all different sizes, multifaceted. That sort of very spider-like, and you would swear that if you turned away and looked, that maybe the cloak shifts a little depending on where you are stood, almost as if there is something or some things moving underneath it.
I like that very much. Nevin.
I think that the saint of surgery is Asclepia, who has a very kind face and kind of gazes down as if looking at someone on a bed, and one hand is kind of in a beckoning gesture and is wrapped in what appear to be bandages, and the other hand has one long finger that is sharp like a scalpel.
I like that. I really like that. Could you tell me if there have been any offerings left at the foot of each of your saint statues?
Yes, at the sort of base of the Ariadne statue, there is lots of little bundles of various sizes, but no bigger than like your hand, wrapped up in lots of different like weave or twine or some other silks perhaps, but it could be fabrics, could be much thinner thread, and they're all you can't really tell what the object is, but you can make a guess. I think at one point you think, oh, that looks like a hand, but I'm not going to investigate what else it could be. It's like a horrible Christmas presents left under a tree, essentially.
Nevin, what has been left at the base of your shrine, if anything?
I think there is simply a small wooden pot that, if you open it, contains some kind of salve, which has kind of portions of herb sort of stuck in it. And yeah, if you smell it, that's another kind of sweet smelling thing to distract from the awful stench of this place.
Very much. Thank you. Theoden.
I'm going to say that at the base, you see small patches of skin. These are wrinkled, old, very, very old. They have not come from someone young. And on each of them is the same scar that Theoden bears on her forehead.
That's gross. I like it very much. You again realize that this is somewhere that is a sanctuary for people of your profession, but then also from the horrors of the gloaming mire. You can see the bugs piling up on top of this protective arch, wanting to feast once again on on their walking prey. And you're going to have to leave this place. And as you do, you walk further up and up onto a ridge. And leaving the saints behind, you get a bit more of a scope of the geography of this place. And you see how far you've come, and you realize if you were to head back, then, that's a long ordeal. Mm. But it can't be much further to the cathedral. It can't. And you find yourselves at a rocky outcrop, and it looks over a waterfall that plunges down. And on this outcrop, you find the remains of a campsite. And it's under a bed of turquoise moss. There are ragged, rotting bits of tattered and trampled gear that are scattered everywhere, and there is this powerful smell. It's an animal musk that is quite distinct from the usual stench of the mire. How's everyone feeling?
If it's quite an overpowering, like if it's such a notable change to the sort of senses, definitely I'd say Desiree is sort of more on guard. She has a hand to one of the belts to use just as a sort of way to almost whip-like, essentially, holding on to that sort of like it's ready for sort of anything, just keeping a lookout essentially next to the other two in a sort of protective position.
Theoden, Nevin, what are you doing now you've reached this little waypoint?
So Theoden, actually, I'm going to ask the GM, benevolent and glorious GM.
Thank my full title, thank you.
As this animal musk hits me, what does the bug in my brain say, or how does it react to this?
You sense something. It doesn't kind of tell you in an articulate sense because it's a bug, but you sense fear.
With that, then, Theoden, there will be resistance to Theoden's movements. As Theoden moves forward, you can just see her like body just begin to spasm again and sort of like fight actively against her as she moves forwards. However, you said the moss was turquoise. Mm-hmm. Would you say it was maybe azure or azure, however it is pronounced?
I would say that there is a certain similarity in the hue, but it would be very generous of me to say yes.
Okay.
But
so
there is...
she's intrigued, let's say. She wants a closer look to just to assuage her fears, maybe, that this she has been seeking.
Okay,
I definitely would reach out my hand to grab Theoden, just to like bring her next to me. If she looks hesitant, I'll just grab her and put her behind me if needed.
We'll get to what Theoden discovers in a second. Nevin, what are you doing?
I think they're very curious. Their old sort of rat catching instincts are kicking in and trying to figure out what animal is this that's been here? Are there any tracks? Is there any way? And is there any fur that's been left behind that I can identify? And is more in the sort of curious space rather than the scared one.
Okay. As Theoden steps forward, awkwardly jerking, as they seem to be being held back by some force, and Desiree reaches out to stop her without success. Theoden finds herself stood on the very precipice of this outcrop and the remains of this campsite. What drew you there, and what do you want to know?
The waterfall, the water, the moss. Theoden is engulfed with the feeling of knowing and wanting to clarify whether or not this is the Azure Archive. And for all of the fear that the bug is driving into her brain, the repeated stabs of its stinger into the grey meat of her head, she cannot fight the need to know if this is what she seeks.
I like this a lot. I think if you're okay with this, Jess, given that there is a body of water beneath you, this feels like an interesting place for a ritual.
Oh, yes.
And I feel like this could be you asking for guidance from your ritual, the Leviathan. This is just something, you don't have to do this at all, but this is just something I'm kind of positing. Whether you think that you're looking for this as your archive and you're looking for clues or guidance, possibly asking for divine guidance might be interesting here. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
I would love to ask for divine guidance. Yes, please.
So we're going to do a ritual here. Now, ritual rolls they're basically a risk roll, but they have to have a dark dice included in the pool. They have to include at least one. So what are you trying to find out? We've figured out you're trying to seek guidance from deities or celestial bodies unknown, to point you in the direction of the Azure Archives, or give you some information about the Azure Archives, correct?
Yes. So how many light? Is it just one light die that I can add to the pool?
So it's
just the one.
It's exactly like any risk roll. You only get a light die if you have got a relevant skill.
Okay.
So what have you got that might apply here? You've definitely got rituals.
Yes. So I'm going to attempt, if you will allow me, to use 3.
You can only ever use one.
Only ever use one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Then I will use rituals, as that is the most relevant skill.
Yep.
Um,
You take a dark dice for it being a ritual, which is kind of you putting your body and mind on the line. Now, also, because this dice pool includes a dark dice, the other hunters can offer a help dice. Now, what that means is that they can offer a white dice to the pool, but if it should go wrong, then they will also suffer the consequences. Anyone want to offer any white dice in help? And you have to narratively make it work. Whether that means you're like hanging her over the outcrop so she can stretch her arms out and be at one with this kind of thing that's going to rise out of the pool below. Who knows? But has anyone got any ideas for that?
I think Nevin is hanging back and sort of still distracted by the tracking investigation that he's undergoing, and also mechanically does not want one more ruin at this point.
Behind the screen.
Also, I would say, Nevin, you've got 2 of your fellow treasure hunters stood at a cliff face.
Yeah,
This could be
that also crossed my mind.
This could be a perfect place for a reduction roll, because bear in mind, I can spring a ruin roll on you at any point, and it's basically just a 6 and you're done for. So have a think about that. Desiree, are you going to offer to help at all?
Yes, because I feel like there is some sort of affinity I have with Theoden, like sort of the motherly is the term, but it's not what I would use necessarily. But I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, and I pull out even more belts, and I basically fashion a rope to quickly go around their waist and just pull it tight, so that they could like almost, I don't know what the word is, but you know when you climb rocks and then you at the top you can look out underneath it. If she pushes her, I can at least hold her
like an overhang.
Like an overhang, and hopefully not let go is my plan. But yeah, physically, like practically helping in that sense.
So we should have started with this, but what could happen if this goes wrong? I'm just going to say that Desiree will lose her grip and Theoden will end up falling into the pool below. Anyone got any advances on that?
I think I don't have any more. I think that is my genuine fear.
So any devil's bargains to add an extra dice? I've got one, which is no matter what, you're going to sense a theme emerging here from my devil's bargains. No matter what, whilst Desiree is dangling Theoden over a cliff face, Nevin's going to have to fight the bandit.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I
think my devil's bargain would be no matter what the divine communion that Theoden undertakes tells her a truth that she did not want to hear.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm going to take the truth that she does not want to hear, because that would break her, and I'm excited to see this little freak break.
If you guys don't let me get this fucking bandit
No,
into the story, you're gonna get to the cathedral and it'll just be that guy on an armchair waiting for you. It's gonna be that.
He'll get there and back. That's the true actual players. We won't survive, but that guy will.
So
And then you have to run a second game where someone plays as that guy.
yeah, that guy.
whoops, all bandits. So we've got, correct me if I'm wrong, we have got white dice for rituals, the skill. We have a white dice for the devil's bargain you've accepted, the dark dice for doing a ritual, and Fiona will roll a white dice for herself, and then we'll add it to whatever is happening.
Okay.
So the way this works is, Fiona, first, would you mind telling me how Desiree is vulnerable to this? It seems obvious to me, but if you want to spell it out.
Well, I guess there's obviously a physical way. Like, obviously, I don't have any weapons on me. Like, I can't turn around in case we're attacked or anything like that. I have to concentrate fully on this. And also, should something happen, like there's a sudden I physically hurt myself with burns. But also, there's a real fear, because I've seen this massive change happen to Theoden, that I realize that I may be holding on to, well, a monster that could turn around and eat me. I just assume eat at this point. We talk about many heads and teeth and gnashing, and I'm just there like, I've done this to myself, but it's important for whatever reason. So yeah, I think emotionally I'm feeling vulnerable because I've made the choice to do this, but physically vulnerable as well.
Okay, so let's roll the dice. The help roll for Fiona is, if you roll the dice and it matches the value of the dark dice in Jess's pool, then you're going to be marking a ruin.
Yeah.
Okay, so roll them up.
Oh, I've just lost a dice. Whoops. Okay. All right. I'll just roll that one. Okay. So my dark dice is a 5. My light dice is a 5.
You should have one more white dice, because you have got the ritual, you've got the devil's bargain, and the black dice.
And the other white dice is a 2.
Okay, so because 5 is higher than your current ruin, your ruin will go up to 4. It is a success, although a mixed one. What did you roll, Fiona?
I rolled a 6.
A 6.
Oh, nice.
It's okay. So it turns out it's a full success. Please. And your ruin doesn't go up. That's I got a little excited there.
No, I know. I was like, oh.
Would you mind talking us through, Jess, how Theoden does the ritual, what that looks like? Because it's the first ritual we've seen. They're going to be different to everyone, and I'd like you to just talk me through it, and then I'll get into the effects.
The way that the cult of Sklilla works is summoning through pain. It is why the vessels are taught to endure pain from birth. And with that, as Theoden is leant over this edge and she gazes into the azure pool below, you see that as she stretches out her fingers, they are crooked, very crooked in each and every join. Nothing is quite straight. And suddenly you see why, as she leans her hands together and then just breaks one of her fingers. And then another on the other hand. She whimpers slightly and then submits and surrenders to the pain, gazes down into the azure pool and asks in, again, this chittering bug-like voice, but with a slight clarity now. Are you what I seek? Are you the azure archives? Answer me, Sklilla. Is this what I know?
Okay. So I'm going to say that this manifests with the water rising up from below to meet you. And it almost comes up like a hand, wraps around you, runs over you, and as it approaches and kind of you find yourself part of it, it isn't the clear crystal blue water that you seek. It's dank, stagnant, green water. Some goes in your mouth and it just tastes like you've had a handful of freshly cut grass just kind of stuffed into your hand. And you hear kind of between the chittering of the insect in your brain, some kind of voice from beyond, which calls you a damn fool. And it says, the truth you learn here from this thing, and Desiree is holding on like this, just water kind of sloshing everywhere.
My feet are definitely like
being pulled. And it definitely has this pull that like it's trying to pull you down, but also like the longer you hold on, you've got to kind of the more information you'll learn, I guess. And you're kind of surrendering to it, like letting yourself have this wash over you, literally and figuratively. You feel foolish initially, but what you learn is that you are on the right path. It's just reaching the cathedral will give you the next piece of the puzzle. Like this is just the first step. And whether that makes you feel like you are at the bottom of the mountain looking up, that's kind of insurmountable, or you feel like you're on the right path, at least. How do you feel about that?
Oh, utterly crushed.
Yeah.
There is in this water sort of held there. There was this sense initially that she'd gotten it right for the first time. She'd gotten it right, and then as that horrendous truth sinks in, you can sort of see as she's suspended in the water, her mouth opens and she is screaming, just letting those air bubbles just they rise to the surface. And she is letting the water in and is just screaming in rage.
We'll just come back to that in a second. Nevin, so the reduction roll. So this is the only way that you can lower. This is the only way you can lower your ruin, right? Yes. So the rule says when you act in the forest's interests, you may try and reduce your ruin once you have marked 5 ruin by acting in the forest interest, by either destroying treasure, preventing rituals, or sabotaging the fellow treasure hunters. Now, are you interested in doing something like this, Nevin?
Yes, I have an idea.
Let's hear it.
Which would be to reach into my pack, take out my scalpel, and while Desiree is distracted and Theoden is in the water screaming, just sever the cord and let Theoden essentially be taken by the water in whatever form that may take. That may involve the water sort of spitting her back out because she's got a connection with it, whatever. But he's kind of thinking, if there's a chance that one less person will take a cut and my bribe can be as big and juicy as possible, then this is a risk I need to take.
Okay, so I'm going to build on that slightly, so I really like it. I think that the campsite you found originally, you know, when, I don't know if you've ever seen like the extreme rock climbers who go up a mountain and they have to sleep on the side of the mountain. So they bang these big kind of metal wedges in with
Pythons.
Rings on, and they hang their tent off the side. I think that maybe the people who camped here did so in terrible conditions, and they bore some of those rings into the ground. I think that Desiree actually has tied your belts together, and one of them is fastened to that. So I think that Nevin has the opportunity to come up behind and slash that, and once you you could just see it. You could just turn around and see it go, and it's not a rope. You've fashioned this together, so it wouldn't be unlikely this will break.
Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily know. Yeah.
Is everyone okay with that framing?
Yep.
And just so you know, this isn't a sheer drop to death. This is not that high, but it certainly would separate separate the three of you. So the way the reduction roll works is that Nevin's going to roll 1 dice. If it is, and compare it to your ruin. If it is less than your current ruin, then you get to remove 1 ruin and your betrayal goes unnoticed. If it is higher than your current ruin, then you get a further choice to make, which we will get to that. So would you like to make the roll?
Yes, certainly. It's a 6.
Oh my god! The dice.
What is my choice that I must make in this unlikely circumstance?
Now, this is a really interesting choice, right? Mm-hmm. You can choose to still remove the ruin, but if you do, your betrayal is noticed. If you choose not to remove the ruin, then you can go unnoticed and you keep the ruin. Now, bear in mind that, like, you know, they might have noticed you there standing with a knife, and you could role play this away. You know, you need each other to get through this, right? So this is not like they'll immediately cast you out, but it's going to lead to some complications. So what would you like to do?
I would like to be noticed and remove the ruin.
Okay, so mark your ruin down back to 4, please. And yeah, tell us what this looked like, please, Nevin.
Yes, Nevin has crouched behind Desiree with their scalpel, beginning to try and saw into the tangle of belts that have been attached to this ring in the rock, and just a few saws in notices that, like, this is far too tough and is taking far too long, and I think there's a tug on the strand that alerts Desiree to something behind her, and so Nevin has to kind of leap up, and I think his excuse is, I thought that Theoden was turning on us. Because this screaming vessel in this hand of water seems like someone you don't necessarily want to have around in your adventuring party.
I'm still, like, attached to this, sort of looking at him and say, like, are you not a man of healing and helping the vulnerable? I thought that was your profession.
Well, a good surgeon knows when to cut off the infected limb. But I may be wrong. Perhaps I should show mercy.
Maybe we need a second opinion.
I think at that very second on that line, the hand drops Theoden, and whether or not that's because Theoden's suddenly aware of this is happening, and now we've got a point where Desiree is now not. So did you cut the belt, Nevin, or were you about to?
I was trying, but realized it was too tough.
Right. So I think that you've got through some of it.
Evidence of it.
And
yeah,
now
evidence of it.
Now Desiree is getting closer to the edge with Theoden just kind of hanging on. So Theoden, what are you doing now? You are basically dangling off the edge of this cliff.
She's still screaming, but now you can hear her. And because I guess part of her lungs have filled with the water, it's just this horrible choking sound that comes out as if it's being torn from her lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And initially she is just, like, limp in the rope, like there's a part of her that has just given up. And then she opens her eyes, and the bug in her brain spasms and does not want to die. And so jerkily, her hand begins to reach up and pull, and she climbs up the rope back to the top. There is no sense of self-preservation. Like, those broken fingers are being jammed into rocks, and she is just mashing her hands, just trying to find holds, and, like, just pulling herself up with pure spite and determination.
I think at this point, Nevin offers a hand to help Theoden up, and
I knock it away instantly. I'm like, I'll take my chances with this monster if you don't mind, and I'll pull, like physically pull up, like using the belts and stuff up.
So, I'm going to say that as Theoden kind of flops out onto this bit of rocky outcropping, you both look up to Nevin, and you see that the tendrils that are sprawling out of his wound at the side of his face, they are still red, but they are burning with an intensity that you didn't previously realize. This is like going from a kind of like a pale orange to like a deep, angry scarlet. And it kind of makes them look pretty evil. I'm not going to lie. So what happens here? Do we have a confrontation? I'm happy to just see this little scene play out.
I think I will just sort of turn to Nevin, like, and put myself physically, like, I'm not a muscly person, but the stature against Nevin, maybe a bit shorter, Desiree, and I'll just look at Nevin. I was like, I've dealt with so many men like you in the past, and it's all gone the same way. So you have a choice now. Either you continue with us, or I will make sure you are struck off.
I completely understand your reservations about me. I made a rash and foolish choice in a moment of panic. And I am willing to accept my culpability and promise to be more faithful and loyal to the party in the future.
I'm just going to intervene here, and I'm going to say that those exact words that Nevin said were the exact words they said in front of the Judicas, who they are trying to, when they got caught. After that, the like word for word, like doing it by rote, those same words come out. And I think that in the same way that the Judicas didn't, I don't think either Desiree or Theoden believes a word of it.
I'm going to say, because one of Theoden's skills is deception,
Mm-hmm.
she's going to look a little deeper into those words, and she's going to maybe see the repetition as if this is something rehearsed.
Yeah.
And with that, she sort of pulls herself up to her feet and fixes him with a glance, and then reaches out and just cups his face. I forgive you.
And so passes Ring 2. You had been, and when I say had been, this is because we're going to skip forward in time a little. Ring 3 sees you starting, having spent several hours on rockier terrain, up a little higher. Like I said before, you could gain a little better of an idea of the geography of this place and your place in the gloaming mire. And you are all sick. You are all feverish, having been plagued by insects, seeing your bodies pushed beyond their limitations already. And you have no choice but to make camp at a strange sight. The camp is a small clearing. There are a handful of these ancient practice dummies, like you would practice jousting on or like archery practice. And they are in an ankle deep bog. And they've been impaled by rusty swords that have just been left there and exposed to the elements, and arrows that have long since rotted away their fletchings. And there is red moss blooming out of the wounds in these dummies. You are all suffering. You are all plagued by visions of being torn apart by a myriad of stingers and mandibles, and having chitinous insects crawling through your veins. And you are all struggling to fight off tiredness. When each of you awake, you are all visibly scarred by your dreams. Please tell me, what manifestation of the swarm's malignancy still lingers in the treasure hunter to your left? And how will it threaten you with your goal? So for proximity's sake, I will say it is Desirym to Theoden, Theoden to Nevin, Nevin to Desirym. So remember that Nevin and Desirym have already got kind of... Well, in fact, you've all got some kind of weird stuff happening to your bodies currently. So,
We've all got
so there is
things wrong.
there's a jumping off point there for everyone.
Okay. Nevin. The tendrils that had taken over your jaw appear to have climbed up into the rest of your face. The left side of your face and neck is now bulging with these scarlet tendrils. Your eye is no longer there, and instead flowers out this gross purple succulent instead. But it still moves as an eye would move, left and right. But I don't know if you can see out of it. Maybe you can. This place does weird things.
Excellent.
Whoa.
Anyone else?
Theoden, I think your sort of skin has gone more mottled. Greys and browns and stuff, almost like the sort of the way it's sort of patterned is almost like, you know, the back of like a moth's wing, that sort of sense. And it's just like in certain patches over your skin, like a rash, maybe coming up from your neck. And let's go for eyes as well. I think your eyes, the pupil has split into two.
Oh, that's gross.
And then on the other one, maybe split into four. So it's slowly but surely becoming more and more like a fly's eye, in a sense.
Oh my god, that's so good. Yes.
I think in Desirym's case, there is a swelling on your arm that appears at first to just be a mildly infected insect bite, but over the time that we have been asleep, it's grown and it's grown until it's encompassed the whole upper half of your arm. And as you awake, you prod it and it bursts open, and inside is a hive.
Oh my god.
Embedded in your arm, crawling with grubs.
Oh no. Oh my god.
I should really write to him.
I think that's horrifying. And I think I'm going to ask for a ruin roll, please, because that is...
But we like
That's
it.
rough.
We like
I mean,
it, though.
I don't mind which order this goes in, but please, each of you make a ruin roll and try and keep it less than your current ruin.
Okay. So I gotta get it less than 4, I think was mine. Yeah, less than 4.
Oh, phew. I got a 3.
I got a 2.
Okay,
I
so
got a 5, which is over my ruin.
Shit.
so Desirym's go up to 5. Bear in mind, you are now eligible. I'm pleased to tell you are now eligible for the betrayal scheme.
Loyalty scheme.
It's the disloyalty scheme. Yeah, you've got a little card. You can stamp it every time you betray one of your hunters, and then the 10th betrayal is free. So, briefly, everyone tell me how they felt seeing this swarm of grubs in Theoden's flesh.
Oh, in Desirym's flesh.
In Desirym's
Yeah, Desirym's flesh, sorry.
Yes.
Theoden can also have some if they want. Like,
I think Theoden is like grossly fascinated with it, but only because she's seeing more grubs than there are because of the many eyes. So is sort of trying to focus and isn't quite, and looks from it and is about to prod and then sort of thinks better of it and looks to Nevin. Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe it is time for a little surgery.
And Nevin carefully, with his 2 clean hands, delicately, with permission, if it's
so
allowed,
clean.
takes Deserum's arm in his fingers and examines how deep this hive is embedded into the arm and whether it would be possible to cut it out alone or whether it would necessitate taking off the whole arm.
Theoden is going to take hold of Deserum's hand and sort of put it in both of hers and just look at her and be like, don't look. Look at me. Don't look at it.
I mean, Deserum, are you fighting this apparent surgery?
Yeah. I am like the most normal person out of these 3 people.
And you've got bugs in your arms.
I have got bugs. I definitely, as soon as I can see the good surgeon sort of prod. Yeah, I guess, like, you know, you said your hands are so clean. I just wonder if they've just got like a natural antiseptic, like, and it sort of stings ever so slightly. And so I'm instantly like,
there's like a sort of ethanol stench coming from them.
Oh no, I'm like, I don't need any help from you, thank you. I'm sure I can get stuff at the top. And again, pull stuff away, because I think feeling it's the sensation. I don't think there's any connection as with the insects with Theoden. I think it's the grubs. It's almost like they weirdly. I don't know if Deserim would be aware of it, but I think it's just a sensation of like there's some sort of embodiment of like dirty and sin, and because you see grubs and you see like maggots and that sort of thing in places of decay. And that idea that she is rotten to the core in some way. And so seeing that is definitely aware that this again, trying to get back to being grounded and stuff, but ultimately being aware of whatever is in the past has made her into this twisted, probably quite dark and evil individual. And although it seems to be caring, is definitely, I think maybe Theoden sees it now, like the belts, that sort of thing to keep you rest. It was more as a, I need you, rather than any sense of care and protectiveness. So now you can probably see the two, so and the real sort of like protective nature is on oneself, and just that sense of like disgust and grimness to it all. And it covers it back up with as many belts as she can, but it probably, you can definitely see the odd gribble to slip out.
Theoden's hands fly back and she moves back. As you wish. No offense intended at all.
I really like this dynamic that's forging. It's really, really interesting.
It's great.
I think that they're with Nevin's apparent betrayal on the cliff top and these perhaps trying to force surgery on Deserim. I feel like you'd all give each other a slightly wide berth. And in this clearing, you're still sick and feverish. Any water you brought with you doesn't quite taste like it's sustaining you in any way, or your kind of victuals that you brought with you and the kind of the food stuffs that you brought with you to sustain you is just not giving you anything, any kind of comfort at all. And you are desperate for some kind of connection with what brought you here and why you're doing this, because these circumstances are so dire and so desperate. So I'd like you each to discover somewhere amongst your person or in your things a token, a physical token that a loved one or friend or anyone from your past gave you, and how it reminds you of your drive, the reason you're here.
Okay. Theoden reaches into a pouch that she has and pulls out a necklace. Very basic, wooden beads, coloured. And at the very sort of pendant end, there's a small wooden tab which says Theoden on it. And she rubs her thumb gently over it and remembers taking it from her mother's neck. And remembers taking her mother's name. Remembers her mother carrying her through the woods, running desperately away from the cult, trying to save this poor nameless vessel child that was so broken not even the cult could recognize. And as she was captured and as she was slaughtered before Theoden's eyes, Theoden took the necklace, claimed the name as her own, and vowed heavily to make sure that her mother's soul and what was left of it would rest in peace, with that name carved in the Azure Archive, the only way for redemption from anyone from the cult of Sklilla.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Anyone else, please?
I think that Nevin takes out of his pack a wooden rod that, if you look closely, you can see there are teeth marks in it. And it is the rod that he placed in the mouth of his patient for her to bite down on to stop her screaming as he performed his extremely risky surgery without the permission of the medical guild, the town in which he lived. And he feels bad about it, but part of him also recognizes that without experimentation, there can be no progress. And yes, this was a failure, but what if it had been a success?
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Desiree, please.
Gosh, wow. I think as Desiree is going through a bag or two, again, trying to find ways to patch up just anything. So with the belt, with the anything like that, with the hive on her upper arm, she finds a very crumpled letter, and it is a letter that she wrote to Erinol. It's one of those letters which is like very much like a sweetheart letter, sort of describing like a very typical, like, I know I've written to you a few days ago, and I just basically sort of telling the news. As again, just for time, Erinol was sent off to a war and never returned, and so it's that idea of the emotion in it, talking about like how their roses are doing well, but I'm not going to talk to them because that's not how you grow roses. That's very silly. And I know you made that up to make me laugh, and it did. And the writing is like, well, when you are home, we'll do X, Y, and Z and all that sort of thing. But seeing this letter reminds her that Erinol never came home. And so we'll tear up the letter and patch it. There's no longer use for what it was intended for.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I loved all of those. As you all are having these quiet, introspective, reflective moments in amongst all this natural horror, you are disturbed. Crushing through the bramble off to the left comes a familiar sight. To Nevin, anyway.
Finally, you're here.
Who's this guy?
having seen Nevin holding a wooden stick that the last time he saw was being used in evidence in a trial, having seen Nevin used the scalpel to betray the people that they were supposed to be helping in the same way that he betrayed his brother. Or is it sister or brother? Sorry.
This is the brother. The sister was the
Yeah.
one who underwent the dodgy surgery.
Yeah. Having seen the exact scalpel used on his sister, used to try and kill at least one of what's supposed to be your compatriots, the bandit is back for revenge. Now, the reason that he's a little different to the last time you saw him is that he hasn't fared so well with the bugs and the travails of the gloaming mire. As he stumbles into the clearing, and in his hand he has kind of like a broken off halberd. So it's got a huge glaive-like blade, but it's got a splintered wooden haft. He has lost half of his face to carnivorous bugs that have chewed through him, as he hasn't had the protection of the saints. He hasn't had the protection of Theoden's surrender. All he is doing is fighting one step after the other to get through this place, to reach this point, to get his revenge. He faces down Nevin and charges. What are we doing, everybody?
I would like to perform a ritual to become a horrible half rat, half human hybrid.
Fuck yeah.
And bite him in the neck.
Yes.
So let's say what you're trying to do. You're going to try and embody a quote unquote, horrible half human, half rat hybrid to then bite this bandit in the neck. What do we think could go wrong if this fails, everybody?
Okay. The wrong half turns into a rat.
It's got a rat butt. Donk rat ass.
Yeah, that reverse mermaid, but make it rat.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Half rat but sexy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that if this goes wrong, you can still do what you need to do, but I think that you won't be able to transform back fully.
That's what my one was going to be. Yeah, 100%.
Is you with that, Desiree? So I think that's the stakes. I think. So you're going to be using a ritual. So have you got what skills are going to give you some dice here?
I would like to suggest blood because it's quite vague, and so perhaps I am channeling the power of my blood to transform my body.
I have another suggestion for you. It doesn't really make a difference, but mechanically, I wonder whether you could use surgery here and essentially go straight for the jugular. Like, that's what will put him down.
Yeah.
Like your anatomical knowledge, possibly. It doesn't matter. It's just the dice, isn't it? So, but either one of those works. So take a white dice for that. Take a dark dice for the fact that you're doing a ritual. Anyone got a devil's bargain? I've got one. No matter what happens, another bandit follows you. No.
Checking off bandits.
Yeah.
Who wants revenge on this bandit?
Yeah. I think
Killed my sister's brother's friend, prepared to die. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's dog walker he's really pissed off, and he's going to keep going. I think that no matter what, I think that he will land a blow on you, and because he is a fighter, basically, he has outmatched you in combat. You're going to have to change form to an animal to take this guy down. And I think that no matter what, you will be injured in this encounter. Anyone else got a devil's bargain that's more imaginative than mine? But that's a good baseline.
No matter what, the rat form that you take actively opposes the tendrils that are taking over your face. And as such, whenever you try to transform in the future, there is a 50% chance that instead your body is completely consumed instead by the tendrils.
I will build on that. I think it will be a fight between kind of flora and fauna here, and I think that in the future you'll lose control of that ritual and you don't know what will come out, whether it'll be plant or rat.
Yes.
They're your options, plant or rat.
The two genders. Yes.
I think the only one I will add to that is no matter what, is that if you when you cut this person down, there is a constant frenziness to your stuff, and you have to sustain or like to keep the thing at bay. This horrible rat / fungus like fauna, you have to eat rats or some sort of vermin to keep that sustained, to keep it at bay.
Okay.
Sustain that taste, that hunger.
So we've got one for surgery or blood. We've got one for dark dice for ritual. Oh wow, I've got. Guys, this game is really bleak and dark. Look at these balloons that are coming up. Would you like to accept one of those devil's bargains? If so, which one?
I would like to accept the battle between flora and fauna and the unpredictable result of this ritual in the future.
Okay, so that's 2 white dice and a dark dice. Anyone can offer to help. Because there is a dark dice in this pool. And crucially, this is something that we didn't kind of talk about last time because it made sense to do it first of all. You can offer to help after the dice are rolled.
Oh, okay.
But bear in mind, it's still the same limitations apply. But does anyone want to chip in now and describe how they would put themselves in danger by doing so?
Absolutely not.
I expected this.
I'm
deserved.
I'm going to do what Never did in the last battle, and I'm going to sit back and just.
It does make sense that no one helps Nevin again for the rest of the adventure.
I'm going to say that if, based on the rolls, Theoden may help by summoning the bugs and just getting them to finish off what they have started with this guy's face.
Oh, I like that.
Good. Oh, so good.
So, let's have a roll then, please.
All right. Highest is a 5 on the light dice, and the 2 others are 3s.
Okay, so your dark dice is lower. So you can re-roll this if you want and add another dark dice. But as soon as your dark dice is higher, you have to stop. But are you happy with a 5?
Yeah, I'm happy with a 5. I'm happy with a mixed success.
Okay, could you please narrate how your transformation looks and how your attack on him looks, and then I'll pick up the rest.
I think at first you almost think that the Plague Doctor mask is growing out of Nevin's face, but it is in fact a snout. And these awful razor sharp teeth begin to sprout from his face, and his hands grow little claws, and his hands remain the same size, but the rest of his body gets bigger. And a tail starts to whip from side to side out of his back. And yeah, I think he is still quite lean and gaunt, but he is covered in sort of patchy hair. There are some parts that are bald. There are some parts that are extremely hairy. And yeah, he just lunges at this bandit, going for the already ruined part of his face.
Just before we get to the actual action itself, Desiree, this is quite a scene. Do you think you could possibly take advantage of this distraction and, in a way, perhaps seek an opportunity to make a reduction roll?
Yes, I will. I think if the attack is successful, and I just imagine this horrible rat folk person just like gnawing at a horrible blood viscera, etc. off the bit, I think she just takes out one of the sharper belts and will just like 1-2 leap and then try and get round the neck and like a collar pull tight and try and like strangle Nevin if that's okay.
So just quickly, there is another role we haven't got to yet, which is a contest role, which is something that is normally reserved for slightly later in the adventure. That's quite attacking Nevin straight up would
Yeah.
be quite a. I'm
It's
not saying you
a
can't do it,
betrayal, isn't it? Yeah.
but yeah, the betrayal is to read the actual role is you're acting in the forest interest to sabotage the other treasure hunters, or actually preventing rituals is one of the options, or destroying treasure. They're the kind of examples it gives. It's less about physically attacking and stopping. So if you've got another idea,
I'll leave that for a later alternative
I'm
timeline when that happens.
pretty sure someone's getting choked with a belt at some point.
Can I jump in really quick?
Of course.
So Desiree has the skill vermin.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way that she can hinder this ritual by essentially drawing back the nature of the rat?
Yes. I love that. That is what I will say, and I've got something great for it if you want to take that on.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to roll a d6 and compare it to your ruin.
Okay. So I want my app to just double checking before anything happens. I'm at 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Christ aside. Okay. That's a 4.
Can I add a help in any way? Is that a possibility?
There's no dark dice in this pool, so unfortunately,
Ooh,
yeah.
right,
so
never mind.
what happens there is the betrayal goes unnoticed, and you silently use. Or do you want to say in what way is your skill of vermin helping this?
Yes, I think at this point, so like seeing this like horrible like there's this transformation happening in front of me, the mass growing out, etc. I'm like dirty, and I pull off one of my gloves, and almost like I think that nature of it. It's I guess going back to like that sort of that passage of like she just says and mutters words that sort of fill people's ears, and like it is that sort of thing like just a rat, horrible vermin that just dirties and clutters. You're never 6 feet away from them, and I'm very close to you. And you know how that makes me feel? Uncomfortable, awful. And then just like pulling, like it's almost like drawing in that stuff. Like it's almost like sticky particles essentially. So like so you can see hair being pulled off, ripping off Nevin's back and stuff. Maybe a tooth goes flying. I'll keep that for later. It's like so it is like pulling back again. That sort of action of pulling. So just trying to claw back this whatever the spirit is, so it's not its full potential. So maybe when Nevin goes to attack, it's not full rat person. It is like stunty little rat, like half. It's constantly bubbling.
To tie all this together, I think your ritual is doom, isn't it? Which says make a creature feel a sense of impending doom. I wonder if you are speaking to the rat, the rat side of this, and the rat almost feels this shame. And as a result of literally midair, as Nevin is going for the jugular, the rat part of the transformation gives way to the tendril part of the transformation. And this animalistic, feral form clamps onto the bandit's body before he's even had a chance to raise his blade. And as Nevin's rat-like mouth goes for the jugular, for the neck, the kind of pulsating vein, actually the teeth withdraw and tendrils come out instead, and it all happens in a blur. It all happens in this amorphous, nebulous kind of mash of fur and tendril. But all you see is Nevin rip his head back and a fountain of blood erupt. Nevin's face is spattered with crimson and with tendril. It's difficult to tell where one ends and the other stops, and you can see on the bandit's neck little bits of tendril continuing to pull his neck apart. And as he does, like Theoden suggested, the insects re-enter, and almost like they form a giant hand grip around his leg, pull him into the undergrowth. But as he is dragged along the floor, he has his mouth kind of half a flap of skin kind of opening, and his tongue is lolling to one side. And Nevin, as your rodent-like features recede and the fighting with these tendril-like extensions to your personality, you hear him say softly, "I forgive you." and so ends Ring 3.
Holy crap.